right, so in this video, we're going to look at using PNGs, whether you create them yourself or maybe you get them for free off of the internet. There's plenty of sites that offer them for free, and using those within DaVinci Resolve, which sometimes might make more sense than trying to create some sort of graphic or something, or a lower third perhaps within DaVinci Resolve. Now we're going to use Affinity Photo, but you could be using GIMP or Photoshop, anything at all like that. So what we need to do right here, I'm just going to press P on the keyboard to get full screen. I need to put some sort of a call out square around this area here and something around this area right here. So just real quick, I could do that, say within Fusion, select that clip, come over here to Fusion, and I could say grab my merge node right here, pop it in right there, then grab this rectangle, throw this in right here, go ahead and connect my rectangle right there. Over here in the inspector, I'm going to turn off the solid and up the border width, and then go ahead and change the width and the height, and then grab it here and move it right where I want it. Change that border width a bit. And of course, just to get this about how you want it, like that. So that's a real quick example of how you could do it directly within DaVinci Resolve here. So then you can see that there. But of course, because it was done within Fusion, it's going to have to render that. So instead of doing it this way, I'm going to create that graphic within Affinity. So let me just going to get rid of that. And I'll just pull that clip back in there. Okay. Get rid of the audio because we don't need it for this video. Now, one thing we can think about is I could head over to Affinity and just create the graphic and then pull them in and try to resize them on the fly. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to press P to get a full screen here. Now I'm on Windows, so I can press Windows Shift S to bring up the Snip Tool and just click this button here, or I could grab this one here. It doesn't matter what you do. I'll just grab this one here for a full screen. Click that. Now I have a full screen snip of that. I could also, by the way, if you wanted to, you could come over to say color, and we could create grab a still or something like that, and then output that. But it's a little bit easier to just, do your snip. So over here now, there's my snip. I'm going to click that. Now, because I have two monitors open, it's going to look, extremely wide. So in my case, I'm going to just crop this real quick here. Just make sure I get that one monitor. That's very good. Enter, save, give it a name if you want. I'll just call it TTTTT. Good enough for us. Very cool. So now let's head over here into Affinity. I'm going to do a new document, come down here, 1920 by 1080, because that's what my video is. I like a DPI of 192 or higher. It just looks better. And go ahead and create that. Then I'll head over into my images folder, my picture folder. Right here is TTTTT. All right. Just drag it right in here. Looks good. So now I have an image in my, photo editor that I can reference and, get this exactly right. Again, you can use Photoshop, whatever you want. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and create my rectangles right here. Grab my rectangle tool, draw a rectangle around this. And in Affinity, I'll come up here to my fill, turn off the fill, come over to the stroke and just turn that up. Change the joints to a square, and then change the color to red for a nice call out. All right, then come down here and go ahead and size this up to about how I want it to look. That looks pretty good. Hold down spacebar, move over. I'm going to grab this. Let me go to my pointer tool, hold down Alt. I'm just going to create a copy of that so I don't have to recreate it. Pull down the size here and then just put it right over this area that says file size. So it's a, sort of a call out to the viewer so they know, hey, take a look at this area, right? Then I'm going to, for this one here, actually might grab it and take the width down a bit. It doesn't need to be as big as this one over here since it's, smaller call out. Then I'll just come over here to my layers, shift, select both of those, come to effects. I want to put a outer shadow on this. As you can see, just a bit of one, just kind of makes it look like it's, hovering out there a little bit. All right. That's cool. Good enough for what we want. So now what we're going to do is output just these two shapes. I don't even need this background image. Now that we have everything set exactly where I need it, I can just throw those into Resolve and I'm good to go, right? So turn off the background. Now I have a choice. Do I want to output this image like this or each one separately? I think I want to put out each one separately. So I'm going to turn off the big one for now and I'm going to export this, and I want to make sure I choose PNG PNG has a transparency to it. So that means when I pull it into DaVinci, it will be transparent and I won't have to crop it down or anything like that. Even though DaVinci is actually pretty good about doing the same thing with JPEGs, but let's go with PNG and just export that, give it a name. We'll say red small rec, so I know what it is. Save that, very cool. And then turn that one off, turn on the big one. And I'm gonna export this. Now, if you're using Photoshop, you can actually import layers, but I could actually export this to PSD, but I prefer to have everything sort of set, at least for this. So we'll call this big red rec. Very cool. Very simple, easy, and done. Head back over here to Resolve. Head into wherever you saved your pictures and your images. And I can just grab both of them right there. Throw them into my media bin. Here they are. Then I can just grab them and drop it right on top, right here. I'm going to right click and say add a track. I have another video track there to play with. Here's my small rectangle. Drop it right down. And as you can see, it's already set and ready to go. It's sized perfectly for me, right? And the reason why I did these separately is I might want to sort of animate them on differently. Let me put this one here on this track. I'm going to extend this one out a bit here. I'm going to squeeze it down to say around right there. Okay, then I'll have this one pop on a little bit afterwards and then pull it out here. So if we look at that full screen, you can see right now, it's just going to pop on. As you can see, it just pops on. I don't want it to just pop on. Maybe I want it to fade on. Real simple here in DaVinci. I don't need to head to my effects library and grab a transition or anything like that. I can just grab it and fade it right on with that handle. So now it fades on, which is pretty cool. Maybe I don't want it to fade on. Maybe instead, get rid of this. Maybe instead, let's go to video transitions. Maybe I want it to slide in. So in that case, I could animate it with keyframes or just grab maybe the slide here and we'll just have it slide in. So that's pretty cool. I could click the slide, open the inspector, change this to say slide top down. So now it's going to come from the top. Boom. Very cool, right? A lot of things you can do here in DaVinci. Maybe a blur dissolve. That might be kind of cool. Throw that on there. Have it blur dissolve in. That's also pretty cool. Again, another thing you could do, for those who don't know, I could keyframe it in. So maybe I want to come up to about right here. Inspector's open. And that's where I want it to basically end. Okay. So I'm going to keyframe opacity. I'm going to keyframe zoom. And I think I'll do position. Let's do rotation angle as well. Give it some spin. I'm going to bring my playhead back here. I'm gonna let's start it really big. Why not? That might be kind of cool. Pull it way up here at the very beginning. Give it some weird rotation there. Why not? Okay, and a little bit larger. Pull the opacity down, and now watch it come in. Boom. That's pretty cool, right? Want to adjust that? Disclose my keyframes right there. Maybe make it longer just by pulling those out, and then there's that cool animation that we created real quick. Instead of having to create something in Fusion or create something in here, it literally takes a second with Affinity Photo or even Photoshop if that's what you prefer. All right. And then, of course, you have the second one right here. Squeeze this down. And we'll just have that one maybe fade on or something. Then you have that. Fade right on. So that's one example. Another example may be something like a lower third. So if you've seen any of the, say, the Plugin Alliance, every single plugin bundle videos, you know, I have like callouts that come out and have like the box on it and information about what bundle it's in. So let's create something like that, and we'll do it within, in this case, Affinity. Again, I'll just do a new, and my frame in Resolve is 1080. So I'll make sure I choose 1080 here. Again, I like to get at least 192 for my DPI. That's dots per inch. Create that. Okay, so now in this case, I'm going to need some elements. Now, I already have these elements created. So I have my Plugin Alliance boxes already cut out. If you don't have them cut out, you can, of course, cut them out yourself, either with Photoshop or with Affinity, whatever you want. So just have my box already set up. I'm going to squeeze it down a bit right here. Now I need to create my lower third. Again, just grab a simple rectangle. Pretty simple stuff to do here. And I like to make my graphics larger and then squeeze them down just to keep the resolution or just to keep the crispness of the image. At least a lot of times. You don't have to, but sometimes I like to make them a bit larger. Squeeze this down a bit. Maybe about there. It's kind of cool. I'm going to hold down Alt and make a copy of that. And then just drag it underneath. I'm going to squeeze this next one down. I'm going to drag it in just a bit. We go ahead and change the fill on this one to black. I'm going to change the fill on this one, sort of that plugin alliance blue. It's pretty close. Good enough for what we want, right? I'm going to grab both of these layers now, right click. I'm going to group them. So that way when I move, grab my pointer tool. When I move this around, they stay together. We come to effects, come over here to say an outer shadow and just pull some of that in again, just to give it some depth. Maybe change the angle. Nah, I like the angle right there. All right, so now let's grab our text tool in here. Again, we could do text in Resolve, of course. We can make this whole thing in Resolve, of course. But this way, by creating it beforehand, I already have my assets ready to go. And then I just have to animate them on instead of having to worry about any rendering over here in Resolve. So my text tool, and we're talking about, over here, we're talking about like an EQ or something, right? So let's call this equalizers. All right. Pop it up. Nice size, right about there. Change the color to white. Change the font here. Something that looks kind of cool. Whatever you happen to like. Let's go to prime time, maybe. That one looks cool. Very good. That looks good right there. Then I'm just going to hold down Alt. I'm going to create a copy of that. Bring it down here. I'm going to size this one down a bit. Double click. Control A. And say plugin alliance just for that, the bottom of the lower third, and change this font to something else that's smaller. That looks pretty good. Take the italics off and go ahead and pop this in right about here. So plugin alliance and double click in here again. And this is the musician bundle. So musician bundle, put that in there. Okay, now we have all that set up, ready to go. And what you might want to do, what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab this equalizer. I'm going to put an outer shadow on that too, just to stylize it up a bit. Pull out the radius, pull this back a bit, just to make it stand out. You could do an outline if you wanted to, real quick here. Might look kind of cool. That works. All right, good. So let's go ahead and shift select those, and we're going to group those together just so I can grab this whole thing and move it around, right? Super easy. Then I'm going to put this over here about there. I'm going to drag my box above it. All right. So that looks pretty cool right there. Maybe size it up. All right. So there is our lower third graphic. Again, you could do the same thing we did previously and say take a screen grab of what we're working on here, and you could have the size perfect. But in this case, I'm creating one that's a bit larger, and I'll squeeze it down. File, export, PNG, export. We'll just call it callout PA. Save that as a PNG. We're good. We're done. Doesn't take very long whenever you're not, talking about it the entire time. Head over to my pictures here. There's my callout. As you can see, throw it right in here. It's PNG, so it's already transparent. All I have to do, drag it down, stretch it out however long I want it to, be on the screen. Select it. Let's go to the inspector here and let's pull that down, and we're going to size it to maybe right there for a cool call out. All right. Let's make it a little bit larger, actually. A bit larger. And we'll size it up right about there. So that looks pretty cool. And then, of course, animate it on either with keyframes or transitions. So maybe a slide would be cool here. We'll have it slide on. Let's zoom in here and change the frames down to, 26 frames. See that? Now it's coming in from the wrong side. No problem. Select that transition. Let me zoom in. Select it, inspector, and just change the side it's sliding in on, and you'll see it slide right in. Simple, easy. And when I want it to go away, that's long enough about there. I'll grab maybe a push and just throw it right there. Take the time down, and that will push it out. Boom. Simple, easy, quick lower third there by creating our PNG and in Affinity, and then just animating it here in Resolve. And of course, you can add let's Come here to master. You could add some sound effects to that if you wanted to. So here's a fast whoosh. Let's see, what do I have here? Throw this one in here, turn it down. You have it swoosh in like that. Of course, adjust it, the timing, whatnot. But that's another thing you can do by creating your, your graphics, your assets beforehand, and then bring them into your video editor. So you're not taking a lot of time trying to create all of this stuff within Fusion or something like that. And this time we have this wrestler slamming a dude. And what we want is sort of that old style Batman call out of like pow. So I already have a graphic right here of that PNG, of course. I'm just going to drag it right in. So then I don't have to spend any time creating things in Fusion or with our text tools over here. I already have my graphic made and ready to go. Let's just size it down. I'm going to go forward here a bit, and right about there is where he hits the ground. So this is where I want it to come in, and the position will be over here, and we want it to end or look about like that once we animate it on screen. So just look at it now, it just comes right on. Not what I want. I want it to sort of maybe spin on and fade on. So let's zoom in here, just get an idea. I'm gonna take this out a couple of frames, just using my angle brackets, because I want a little bit of lead time for the animation. All right, so I want it to be on and say about there. You can always change it later. And we'll do zoom, opacity, position, maybe rotation angle. Could do pitch and near. Let's do these two. Why not? Pull this back and let's have it start small. Okay. And then zoom on. So we'll zoom it way out here. Maybe we'll have it rotate up. Be kind of cool. And we change the pitch, change the yaw, and it looks pretty good. Position is fine. And then opacity down. And now we have animated that call out. Pretty cool. As it just comes on. Of course, you have an effect in there as he hits the mat. But now if we look at this in full screen, play back, boom, comes on. Really cool animation, really quick and easy. Not having to mess with Fusion or creating things in Resolve. You can create those really quickly in Affinity, or of course, you just go to Google, type in POW PNG, and you'll probably find plenty of free graphics that you can use. Some you have to pay for, others are free to use. It just sort of depends. Lots of stuff you can do with that. One more example, I guess we'll show here. Let me come back to my pictures library here. I'm going to grab this image right here, just drop it right into the timeline. And what I wanted to show here, I actually did this in a video already. So I'm going to have a USB drive go from this computer into this computer. We can do all that with a PNG image. So in this case, I'm going to need a USB flash drive. Now I already have a picture of a USB flash drive. If you don't, again, into Google, USB flash drive, PNG. Okay. Again, you're going to find plenty that you can use. If you don't find one, just head to the manufacturer's website and they'll probably have PNGs that you can just download and use, or, take a picture and cut it out yourself, make it transparent and save it out by using Affinity. But in this case, we already have a PNG. So I already have that saved. So USB flash drive, just go ahead and search for it. And we'll just go with this one here. Just drop it into our bin there and just drag it right in. So there's our flash drive. We didn't have to create anything in DaVinci. We're just using assets that are PNGs that are already transparent. So it's much quicker to work with. Let's just size it down with the inspector. And I don't know. That looks good enough right there. So we're going to have this one being sort of plugged in to this computer right there. And we want it to move over to this computer over here. Not a problem. Super easy to do here with our PNG. So let's say we want this to be in this computer up to here or so. So we'll go ahead and lock down that transformation with a keyframe. You can expose your keyframes here so you can actually see where they are if you need to. And about here, I want it to be into this computer. So now I can go ahead and just do whatever animation I need to. And about there, I think. Then we'll go ahead. Now I actually could do this in 2 steps. Let's do it in 2 steps this time instead of just doing it in 1 step. So right here, I want it to be up here. Let's say, let's do that. So we'll just drag it up, drag it over. We're going to have the rotation turn a bit right here. So let's see what we have so far. Up, there it is. And now from here, we want it to come down and plug into this computer. So we'll give it about the equal amount of time, just sort of judging by eye down here. And then we'll go ahead and drag it down, change my rotation and pull my position into the computer and right about there. Sort of showing that it's plugged into a different computer now. And there we have a cool animation using our PNGs. Boom, a boom. Pretty cool. Full screen. Again, just press P on your keyboard or Control F, whatever you prefer. Boom and boom. Plugged in. Super easy to do that instead of trying to create some complex thing in Fusion, which you can do if you need to. You know, this entire thing here was actually created within Affinity. This entire graphic, then brought it into Resolve, and it speeds up your editing quite a bit. As you can see, boom, boom, looks cool, looks awesome. All right, so that is the power of using PNGs right here within DaVinci Resolve, and in our case, also using Affinity Photo.